the sooner you can stop saying I coach like this person, the better. Like the sooner I can say like, I coach like Matt Kredich, or I coach like Bill Boomer, or I coach like Al Bull, the better, because you want to coach like you. You want to take the things that you like from all the different people, try to figure out how to apply it to wherever you are, and then make it yours. And you can still obviously talk about all the different people who influence you, but when you said that, I realized how often I hear that, right? When you ask somebody how they coach, they say, oh, I coach like X, Y, or Z person. Like I coach like Todd DeSorbo, I coach like whoever, right? And
sure.
I think the sooner you can come up with like, oh, I like all of these different things from all these different people, and it works in this type of way for where I am. But it's your own thing. And that takes a lot of time. I would say I haven't felt that until the last probably couple of years. So, and I've been doing this for over a decade. So.
Take your marks.
Welcome to another episode of the Get Out Swim podcast. I'm your host, Seamus T. Quinn, and today I'm joined by Associate Head Coach of Men's and Women's Swimming and Diving at Swarthmore College. This is Sam Davy. So, Sam, thanks for hopping on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk swimming.
Definitely. Well, good. I'm happy we connected. So, me and Sam got in contact after I released the episode with Karen, who is the head coach at Swarthmore, and I'm just happy to get now sort of the assistant coach / more recently associate head coach. Your perspective on kind of Swarthmore, the swimming and diving program that you and Karen have really fostered there, and then also just getting that other side. We've had a lot of head coaches on the podcast, so I was honestly really happy to have you reached out, because I don't think, maybe there's enough attention that I'm giving with the assistant coaches and sort of the other side of the staff. And so I think that this is going to be maybe a little bit of a different perspective, honestly. But yeah, so let's start like this. So you just got through, I mentioned this with Karen, but you guys just had a killer season. You guys are just like crushing it over at Swarthmore, 3rd consecutive titles for your men and women. And, just overall, great performances at NCAAs. You guys finished, with the best finish ever in team history at Swarthmore. And I believe, what did you guys win one of those relays, or what was the highest finishing relay that you had there?
We were 3rd in that 2 free relay. We were
3rd in the 2 free relay. So a top 3 finish in the 2 free relay for your women, like absolutely outstanding. And really just like continuing to put Swarthmore on the map as like, and not only winning the Centennial Conference, but then also just being like national contenders. And that's really, really impressive to see. So let's start by just getting your thoughts on, kind of your men and women doing the things that they did this season, whether that was recapturing the conference titles, going to NCAAs with that strong of a team. Just like, what are your thoughts when you reflect on the season? You've had some time now, like when you look back, sort of, what are your takeaways? What are sort of the big takeaways?
Yeah, I mean, this year was a big pivot year for us, especially with that women's NCAA performance. But I think this year was really about our team just kind of continuing to progress as a team, especially being led by our seniors. I mean, we're graduating 16 people who, there's 4 All-Americans in the group. There's a Fulbright Scholar Award winner. 6 of them swam at nationals. I think 12 of them were all conference at some point. And they just have set the tone for our program, honestly, since really the fall of 2021, in my opinion. They came in that year really motivated as sophomores, and I think learned quickly how to be excellent student athletes here at Swarthmore, and grew into their leadership roles and allowed our underclassmen to grow underneath them, almost as important as anything. And so this year was really cool to see them. I mean, they lost 1 conference dual meet in their 3 years here because we missed that freshman year. So they were a focused and motivated group for 3 years, and this year was kind of the like chef's kiss on top of that for them, and with the highest points for both the men and women by gender in conference history. That was not what we expected. So it was a pretty awesome year. and we're excited to try and build on it and replace those 16 seniors next year.
Yeah. Any like memorable races when you look back on this year, or even dual meets or anything that kind of like sticks out in your mind as like, wow, these were big moments, for our swimmers, for our team.
Yeah, I mean, I think that over the course of the year, there's like a lot of benchmark spots that we look for. Whether it's like coming at the end of the year, like the moment at the end of the year when me and Karin looked at each other on like the third day of practice, and we're like, this is the most prepared our team has ever looked at this point. And then the performances we saw at our team inter squad, our pentathlon meet that we do, the swims at our first meet against Gettysburg, McDaniel and Bryn Mawr, and then it just kind of like continued from there with the performances all season long. At conference, I mean, there was a couple. I think Karin alluded to them. I listened back to that podcast this morning and thought about the ones that she was like not naming by name. So what was it talking about? And I mean, I'm not Ben Freeman's 200 free was one of those races that I think made me, Karin, and Mike Pace, one of our part-time assistants, all tear up a bit. But it was also races like, Joey Luckner as a senior trying to, swim his last 200 back as fast as he can and then putting it all out there. And then there's just so many other swims in between. So I think the race from this year, though, was that women's 2 free relay for me, at least. It took me probably took me like 10 days to like stop being so manically happy from that swim from them. So I'm lucky that JP at Pomona gave me some advice on Saturday of that meet that he said, like, you can kind of get drunk off the happiness from these moments, and to just remind yourself to not get like too intoxicated by that. And so I came back to that a lot, but it was funny because I also was like having a blast, being really happy with our women and just being very proud of the 4 of them. So it was probably that race if I had to pick one, but I could probably sit and talk about a race for every single kid on our team.
Talk to me what, like, how you've seen that group of women in that relay, like, just put it together this year. Like, I mean, what were some things that they just worked on, in practice, or kind of talk about just how they got to that point? What were some of the things you noticed or observed that like they did to actually get there? Because, that's the final product, but there was all the process leading up to it.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about how we try to get them to work and earn a time, and the time that they earn might give them something else. And in that case, it gave them the 3rd place relay, right? Other years, it would have been a different place. There are years where the time in the morning, I guess I think it always would have made it back, but maybe not. I didn't actually look close enough. Maybe that time wouldn't have made it back another year. We had years over and over and over again where we'd get right at the previous year's cut line and not make it. We earned a great time, got a school record maybe, but so I think about, like, we talk about that a lot, and only one of them won a lifetime best on that relay when they took 3rd. A lot of them, they were right there, so nobody had a bad race, but they all earned really solid swims, and that got them to be 3rd place as a team. So I think them like embodying that all season, and then you see the pictures after the race, like the elation of like, wow, that's what we got out of that. Like like holy cow, we went 1:32.9 and took 3rd. It was I think kind of like really getting to celebrate, and like we talk about making championships a party, like have all season long to get ready to throw the biggest party you can. And that was, I think, the biggest party moment I've ever experienced, at least as like an individual coach, seeing my athletes perform at the highest level. So I think the only thing as a coaching staff that we did relay starts a lot. We did relay starts for like an hour every Wednesday. We would do an hour on land, an hour in the water with them. And we probably spend like 45 minutes a day on relay starts on Wednesdays. Doing it on land, doing it in the water, doing it off the blocks, just because Gettysburg is super good at relay starts, and they always toast us on that at conference. So I was like kind of getting sick of watching them toast us at conference. And I think they still might have a little bit this year, but we got a lot better at relay starts. So
nice. Yeah. I love it. I think like you segmenting a portion during the week to just be like, hey, this is our time to work on relay starts is actually like probably super beneficial. And it seems like it is. So I like it.
Yeah. I mean, we jumped one on Wednesday. We jumped a relay on Wednesday at nationals. So, sometimes you go a little too fast, but they all got a lot better at them. So
yeah. So, I mean, but it happens at every level. It's like, it happens at the Division I level. It's like, it's trying to like teeter that line, right? Every time
Yep.
when you're trying to push milliseconds, and get that next place. So yeah, but that's great. So describe describe to our audience like your primary roles as
Mhm.
associate head coach, and then even more like I always see like this title of associate head coach, and I kind of know what it means, just like as far as establishing yourself a little bit more as not just an assistant, but having maybe more roles that you're taking on, and then ultimately just from a even like a pay perspective and stuff like that, like it adds a little bit more. But yeah, like what does being like an associate head coach mean to you?
Mhm.
And yeah.
Well, it's funny. It honestly doesn't mean much more than just being the assistant. I remember
Yeah.
when Karin gave me that role. She did it, and I knew at the time, and she told me this later. I knew without her saying it that like I think another coach in our department made one of their assistants associate head, and then like within a month, another one did, and she was like, "I should like this. This is something I should do for Sam too." So it was kind of just like we hadn't really thought of it because uh, we just I am like my number one role as the associate head coach or a lead assistant or whatever is to support her, right? My goal is to make sure that her and I are aligned, and it almost never comes down to like me being on one side and her being on another and having to like swallow my pride and let her be the head coach. We are pretty much always coming to agreements at the same time, which is super advantageous for working together for 7 years. But it is ultimately like making sure that I support her and letting our athletes know that she's running our program and communicating to recruits why I believe she is the best leader for them in terms of being a part of a program, and deferring to her in terms of how I work with our administration, how I work with our support staff. I just think that she is the leader of this program, and so my goal is always to support her, and the secondary goal is to just build relationships with our athletes. My goal is to try to help our student athletes have a transformational experience when they go from the first time that we email when they are, maybe even a sophomore in high school, all the way through senior year, and then they come here for 4 years and they leave. I want them to change a lot, and I want to be part of that actively. So, I support Karin first and foremost, and then I try to build the best relationships I possibly can. So those are probably the two most important things.
And like, I know that there's been times where Karin has been on maternity leave, and you've stepped in and kind of taken over as sort of the acting, at least, head coach just during her time away from the pool. So talk to me about just like, I don't know, how you kind of manage that situation. Like, were you sort of in constant communication with Karin, or
Yeah.
were you kind of letting her like do her thing, and then you took over, and did it give you a sense of like, hey, I could totally be a head coach at some point. I really like this.
Yeah, so this is my third time being interim, and technically by the end of this one, I'll have been interim for every month. I've done all like four segments of the year. So the first time I was, it was really hard because Karin's
Mm,
daughter was born in early December and my son was born in late December. So yeah, we don't worry, it gets worse. So we have kids within like 30 days of each other. So I was like a zombie the second half of that season. But that was December of 2019. So in December of 2019, we both have our first kids, and I'm interim head coach. And a lot of what I'm doing then is like continuation of what we did all fall, right? Like we set the standards all fall. We made sure that we knew that her and I were on the same page. Our new assistant we were onboarding was on the same page. So I was more just continuing, what we did all fall. We did have an earthquake hit Puerto Rico right before we were supposed to go. That was a unique challenge. I think my son was like 6 days old, and I had been interim for like 5 weeks, and I was navigating that. And then we lost our conference championship that year by 20 points, I think, on the women's side. Gettysburg was they were so good on Sunday night that year, and so were we actually. They just were better.
wow.
So it was like and then 15, 20 days later, COVID hit. So it was a
Right.
very, we had two top 10 men's relays that year for NCAAs that didn't get to
Mm,
swim. And I was interim during that. But like you asked about were we in contact like every day? Yeah. Like Karin lives like a
yeah.
5-minute walk from the pool. I'll
Okay.
I'll stop by her house if I have to. Her and I are constantly, if you looked at our text chain, you're like, why are these two texting at literally every hour of the day? So, because we both have young kids. So that
Totally.
was the first time around. And then the second time, she actually was on leave at the beginning of the year. So that was a little different because I was responsible for setting the tone from the start of the season. And anyone who's ever interacted with me and Karin know that we're very different, even though we get along stupendously and we work together really well. I'm type B and like much more of like throw things at the wall and try new things and a little all over the place. And she's type A and super organized and gives us direction. So we're very complementary. I was very fortunate the year that I was the interim for the start of the year that we had an assistant in Mabel Fowler who is now at Trinity, and she made my life exponentially easier because Karin's son was born 30 some days after my daughter, my second child. So our first two
Wow.
are less than 30 days apart. Our second two are less than 40 days apart. So I was again like pretty brain dead for most of that fall. So it was that was tough, but we also like I talked at the beginning of this about how impactful our current seniors are. They
Yeah.
made this all a lot easier, right? Especially
Mm.
the second time I was interim, like just knowing I had a group of leaders who I could trust on our team was
Yeah.
peace of mind. That is, I know how fortunate we are for that. But then this last time, it was just I don't know. Carmen went on leave something like 6 weeks ago, maybe, and I just every day take it one day at a time. Off season's very different, right? So I did our banquet and all those things, our swim lesson program, but Karin alluded to this on her last call. It's a lot easier this time around because I also don't have a newborn. Most importantly, I don't have a newborn this time. So yeah, it's
Right.
a lot
Right.
easier. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Wow. It's amazing how you guys just are like, having these kids that are around the same time and
I
sort of
know.
navigating parenthood, and oh my god, yeah. I just can't imagine, especially that specific time you talked about, like December 2019 and leading into
Yeah.
the end of the year, and then COVID hits. It's funny you mentioned the earthquake in Puerto Rico, and I was there for that because we were on our winter training trip at UMass Amherst in San Juan, and I remember
Oh,
just
okay.
waking up, the place
Yep.
was rattling, and it was like, oh, we gotta, I think we had a flight the next day, or we were able to get out, and that was at the tail end of our trip. But anyways, it made me think of that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. It
but
wasn't like a bad earthquake, but it was literally like less
no,
than 24 hours before we were supposed to leave, and just the optics were like it was a terrible idea to go at that point. And I knew friends down there who like they didn't have power in their hotels, so like when I say it
mhm,
wasn't a bad earthquake, like some people were they didn't get to swim for like 3 days,
right,
trying to find a pool
totally,
and things like that. So like, but for us, we just were like we pulled the plug on it, but I had to do all that um, on like no sleep.
yeah.
So,
No, it's oh god, yeah.
yeah.
Wow. So okay, so talk to me about this, like as far as recruiting and sort of I don't know your kind of like philosophy and also just like approach to recruiting and sort of what that means to you. Are you someone who's just very like prideful in the recruiting process and getting to know the student athletes? I mean, you touched on it a little bit, but I think I'm always interested in learning about like what kind of assistant coaches and their approach is to recruiting head coaches too. But
Mhm.
I think I'm always just trying to learn about what the approach is like and just how you eventually get really the buy-in from these kids to come to Swarthmore to develop over their 4 years, and I guess just what are some of the things that you're relaying over to the recruits that you're in touch with and just stuff like that.
Yeah, I think Swarthmore is very self-selective, and
Mm,
that is actually a huge asset. I have colleagues, whether it's here or other institutions in different sports or in swimming, who see it as a negative, like our recruiting pool is so small because of the academic standards, and I see it as an enormous asset because there are still tons of great candidates who are
mm,
admissible applicants for Swarthmore. I came here from having a 3 year stint, being a 1 year volunteer in D1 and 2 years as a grad assistant. And I was used to managing a database of like 500 people and trying to figure out like who are these, who are the lower level kids are going to pop off for those Division 1 teams. And so when I got here and I was like, wait, we're only going to recruit like 200 people. That sounds awesome. Like sign me up for that. So it actually, I think it's a huge advantage. And then when you start to get to know the type of people who are going to thrive at Swarthmore, the people who really care about their academics and really care about doing well in school and being excellent kind of across the board. For me, it's just like, it makes it's so obvious how to help them get faster, right? They're invested in the process of getting better, usually academically, and then if you find the right ones, athletically as well. People who really love the idea of using swimming in college as a tool to, have a social group, to develop a network, to stay in shape, to have another outlet to try to be accomplished, because they're unfinished business in swimming, whatever it may be. There's just so many reasons why people want to swim in college, and trying to help them figure out if we're the right fit. So usually I tell people, like, we talk to close to 400 to 500 kids, whether it's one email or just a phone call, or they fill out our questionnaire. And we end up with usually less than 20, right? Like, we build a class to end up with at the most 10 men and 10 women. And so getting to that point is, in my opinion, all about information. So like I try to overwhelm the kids with information if I can. Less so now with all my own kids, but historically I have emailed a lot and sent a lot of information to them, whether it's about our not just our U.S. World News Report rankings or anything like that, but specifically, if something happens on campus, if there is like an event on campus, or if we have a set of speakers, or sending them information about their specific majors, or encouraging them to follow us on social media. We do a virtual junior day, like just trying to like overwhelm them with information so that when they decide that we're not the right fit for them, or that we are, hopefully they have done that with every single piece of information they could possibly need. And then that, I don't know, that gives me peace of mind then, right? Like if they see all of this about our program and come to the conclusion that we're the right fit for them, it's very gratifying. And then I think it helps us onboard them. It helps they have a better understanding for our team, because we gave a lot of info through that process. And it's still always hard because you're depending on 15 to 18-year-olds decision making, and sometimes that's unpredictable, but I just try to give them all the information possible.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I'm curious, so tell me about your background in just like the sport of swimming. I want to go back like in how you got into coaching, maybe who some of your mentors were along the way. Give me a background into Sam Davy as, a swimmer growing up, where you landed, collegiately. And again, how you found your way into coaching.
Yeah, I'm from north central Wisconsin. I'm from Stevens Point, Wisconsin, and so a pretty small town. But I actually grew up playing way more soccer than I did swimming. The amount of hours on a sport, swimming probably didn't surpass soccer until I was like halfway through college. So I played traveling soccer starting when I was like 7 or 8, and was super lucky to have like a group of like 5 or 8 core guys who, I was a team captain starting when I was like 12, and just loved the sport and loved the team aspect of it. And I swam just because my sisters did, and because it kept me in shape for soccer. And being from like a small town, I think like in middle school, I played like 5 different sports. I was like soccer and football and basketball and track and swimming. And swimming was always just kind of in the background, as just another thing I did as a YMCA kid, really more than anything. And then in 8th grade, I had a coach who made a huge impact on me, in Justin Stoffel. He had been at the Longhorn Swim Camp as a counselor. This is all the way back in like 2004, maybe, for him. So it spent the summer with Brendan Hansen and Ian Crocker and all the Aaron Pearsall and all those guys, and coached me for 1 year of club, and I think I probably grew like 5 inches that year. I was like 13 going on 14, and I got a lot better at swimming in one season. So I just did it more and got more encouragement from him. Through high school, I still played 3 sports though. I played soccer all through high school. I had a track coach who was probably the most influential in terms of like early on, after working with Kevin Strevler with Spash Track. I was like, I want to do this. Like, I like this. Like he was just a coach in track and field who, they just won. They're the defending state champs in Wisconsin. They're going to defend that title here in the next couple of weeks. I'm excited to see if they can do it. But him as a coach just showed me like how much you can shape the lives of hundreds of people. We had a 100-person track team, and he just led the group in a way that I always admired. So Justin then recruited me to Point. He had left the YMCA and went actually over to UWSP, Wisconsin Stevens Point, and recruited me to swim there. Much to my parents' dismay, I looked at schools probably, all over the country. I visited tons and tons of schools and ended up in my hometown. So I was a hometown kid who stayed in my college town, and I swam for Al Volk and Justin Stoffel for 4 incredible years. The system that they have there is if you stay on as a fifth year, if you are continuing your education as finishing your undergrad or whatever it may be, you can stay and help coach. So after I swam for 4 years for them, I stayed on for a fifth year and finished my undergraduate degree. And I think I added a couple minors in like coaching and strength conditioning and nutrition maybe. So I kind of sharpened up some of the edges, and I helped them with their strength program. That was probably the biggest thing I did there, just because I had a minor in strength conditioning. And I was hooked. I probably was coaching within a week after I finished swimming. I just always knew. I used to think I wanted to be an athletic trainer, like train athletes. And then when I was in like athletic training 101, my freshman year, they show a video of like a guy getting his neck cut open on an ice rink, and it was like, you have to put your hand in this guy's neck and save his life if you want to be an athletic trainer. And I was like, I can't do that. I'm not cut out for that. So I understood what athletic training was versus coaching, and then I pretty much moved as much as I could towards that. So I coached camps in college. I still go back and coach the camp at UWSP with Justin. So Justin's probably been the most influential person in my career. So, always says like rule number 1, don't panic, which is a really good rule in life, and gives me a lot of parenting advice. I mean, he had 2 kids when I was in college. I think his son was born my junior year and his daughter was born my 5th year. So I got to see him become a dad when I was, a college student, which I think is incredibly valuable for me right now. His son now is like a beast. He ran like a 4:57 mile. He's like 7th grade. Yeah, he's an animal. So yeah, my high school is like known for cross country. I think they've either first or second, like half the time in the last 50 years. It's at Wisconsin State. So he's a little animal, Justin's son. So that's kind of how I got started in my hometown and at Wisconsin Stevens Point.
And then so moving on, so you end up kind of starting off in the collegiate ranks a little bit later at Ohio State, Wisconsin. You get that sort of Tennessee, the Ohio State and Tennessee, and so you get the division kind of big time Power 5 conference Division I experience, and you touched on it a little bit just with the recruiting responsibility and the difference between being at a more self-selective liberal arts college that's much smaller as opposed to like a Power 5 Division I massive program. But so tell me about sort of those early years of just like being a coach at these big schools where you have just some unbelievably fast swimmers, talented swimmers, future Olympians and NCAA champions, qualifiers. Just tell me about those experiences, maybe like what you learned, from that time, and if any of it was transferable to like then going over to something completely different in Swarthmore.
Yeah, I learned a lot, and there's a lot of stuff that's very transferable. So when I finished coaching as a 5th year, Justin was like, go to the Texas swim camp like I did. That was his number 1 piece of advice. I was very lucky to have a friend that was graduating at the same time that also wanted to go into coaching. That's Dan Kolevsky. He coaches a 100 to 200 group at NC State. And so Justin sat me and Dan down and was like, go to the Texas swim camp, make friends, have fun, don't spend too much money on 6th Street and learn as much as possible. And so we went down there in 2013 and I had already secured a club job. I knew that I wanted to coach club for 1 year just to make sure that I didn't miss something that I thought I wanted more than college coaching. So I coached 1 year of club, and I was like probably the biggest idiot in charge of a fast group of kids. I inherited this group of kids in Madison, Wisconsin. That was incredible. I Vita Nelson was 14. She was a 51 flyer. She was the national age group record holder. And like Gabriella Pierre-Baume, she just graduated from Vanderbilt. She was like a 25-0 50 freestyler, and she was 11. It was awesome. And I didn't know what I was doing. And I thought I was super smart. I definitely thought I was really smart by the end of that year. It was like, there was like a group, like we went like 334 in the girls 13-14 4-free relay. It was nuts. And I definitely was like, I am the smartest man alive. Like I am so smart. Look how fast all these kids have gone. And I was also like very ferocious in learning. Like I love to learn. I still try to learn as much as possible. And like I was learning like I'm smart. I think that was kind of like the negative feedback loop I was getting. So then I left and went back to Texas for another summer. And by happenstance, I was connected with Bill Dorencott at Ohio State and given the opportunity to leave club and to go be a volunteer at Ohio State. And I learned probably within 24 hours that I didn't know anything about swimming, that I was very far away from being a great coach. I actually have like that Dunning-Kruger effect, the idiot climb or whatever, and you fall down to the valley of knowing nothing. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. So like
Totally.
yeah, I printed that out. I think by the end of my year at Ohio State, I was like, holy cow, I don't know anything. And Ohio State was there was split gender at the time. So I was just with the women. Jordan Wolfram was in her first year as the assistant. And I think she was trying to figure out things as much as I was at that time. Because it's 10 years ago now. And I just tried to learn as much as possible. I think what Bill taught me more than anything is about, like, you need to have standards for yourself and for your team. Like, and I think our women were like 5th or 6th in the Big Ten that year, and now they're just rattling off Big Ten titles one after the other. It's like the least surprising thing to somebody who was there 10 years ago, and seeing how just Bill had like unrelenting standards for what he believed would lead them to where they are now. And I was super lucky to be there, and he held me to those standards too. And I definitely didn't meet them at times, and he allowed me to learn and grow. And so by the end of that year, I knew, like, factually, I had a long way to go. We were talking before this call about how me and my wife met. And so when I was at Ohio State, it was when me and my then girlfriend started dating. She was a volleyball player and a track athlete where I swam. And we had stayed in touch and started dating when I was at Ohio State. And it was perfect because I then decided to go down to Tennessee, which is where she was getting her PhD. And that is where you go if you want to learn a lot about swimming. Matt Kretich is the most innovative mind in our sport, I think. He is just willing to try anything. He will send you on any fool's errand you want to try to figure out a new trick or a new way to go fast. And it was just the best because he just gave me so much autonomy to try different things and to learn from him and just have my mind blown by all their different resources and their different learning tools. So Matt was just, I mean, he is, if you've ever heard how great of a man Matt is, he's even better. So I was super lucky to be there. So I got there. They had a staff at the time that was together for 5 years total. And at the end of my second year was when they all kind of departed and people went their different ways. For the most part, I mean, Matt and Ashley are still there, but they were all like really tight, and I was very, very lucky to like be invited out with them right away. Like, you want to come watch a Tennessee game? Do you want to, come in? Like, Brett Lungar was a Chiefs fan, and I'm a Packers fan. We watched the game together. Like, they just were so welcoming and so awesome, I guess, as people. So Matt was in charge, but Tyler Fenwick was like my direct report. And for anyone who knows Tyler, he's just a character in all the funniest ways to me. I love Tyler. I think he taught me an attention to detail and a level of accountability that I probably couldn't have like built on what I did at Ohio State without him. So I connected with Tyler very quickly. And Brett Lungard was somebody who I think me and him passed like mentor too quickly to just being friends now. So I was very lucky to have him there as well, and just him and Jess opening their doors to me and Lizzie and just being awesome people. So he's going to do amazing things at Kentucky, I have no doubt. So, but during my 2 years there at Tennessee, I think the biggest thing was that like Matt would just keep this revolving door of people. Like you would have Vern Gambetta on the pool deck. You'd have Jan Albrecht on the pool deck. You had Bill Boomer on the pool deck, and people just like a continuous cycle of the most brilliant minds in our sport. And so, I was very lucky with that staff and Joe Whitney, their mental, their sports psych coach, and Greg Adamson, their strength coach. Like, they're awesome. They're a really great program down there. So, yeah.
Do you still keep in touch with these, like coaches now and friends? Like, do you ever text them for, hey, here's like, somewhere I got, do you have any advice? Or just like back and forth, just kind of keeping them as colleagues in this space, but also friends?
Yeah, you try, right? Like we all get busy with our lives, so we all follow
For
each
sure.
other on social media and stuff. But I took Brett to that Chiefs Packers game last year, and he got to watch them lose right in his face at Lambeau. That was pretty nice. So, like I said,
Nice.
me and Brett have become much faster friends. But I mean, I probably message Matt once a month, maybe, and if I called Tyler right now, he would answer and talk to me probably as long as I wanted. So they're a
Nice.
very awesome group. So.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. And Tyler is at UVA, right?
Yep, Tyler went to UV. So that year when in 17, Tyler left for UVA, Brett left for Princeton. I went to Swarthmore. I mean, actually, even the director of ops changed. The head athletic trainer for swimming
Mm.
left. They had a lot of changes happen, which obviously you see what they're doing right now. It's not hurting them. So.
No. Okay, so tell me about this. You talked about loving just working with Matt and just him being such like an innovative coach and just not being afraid to like try different things and give you autonomy. And it seems like from what Karen said, and you even mentioned it earlier, I mean, you're someone, she said that working alongside you, you're someone who is just like very kind of good at just trying things. Like you said, you throw things at the wall. You're someone who just kind of is down to adapt and just kind of like try new things, see if it works. And if it does, great, we'll keep with it. But if not, like we'll change it up. So yeah, what do you think are like some things that you really enjoy as a coach, maybe even like specifics in swim workouts, or that could be like even off, out of the water in terms of your dry land background or strength and conditioning background. Like, are there things that you found even within this year or recently, like you really really enjoy?
Oh, that is long. That could be a long answer.
Yeah.
I mentioned him along with a couple other people, but I think like so Matt and Brett and myself and many people are very influenced by Bill Boomer.
Mm.
He is a legend in the world of swimming. I was super lucky to have to. I was in charge of Bill during SECs in 2019, all 10 sessions, getting him to like where he needed to sit and like where he was going to watch, and which if anyone knows Bill Boomer, you know how like I just dumbly walked into an incredible situation where Bill just talked my ear off for 5 days straight about swimming, and
Give
I
a real quick, give a background on who Bill Boomer is, what his background is.
yeah, so Bill was Bill was the head coach at University of Rochester. I want to say for like 40 years ish, I think I saw.
Hmm.
And he is just like one of the most innovative minds in the history of our sport. Like undoubtedly, every single person who coaches swimming has been influenced by Bill, whether you realize it or not. All the
Mm.
ideas around like how the stroke comes. I say all the ideas. That's not fair. Many ideas around how you swim from your body, how you use your body, how you create balance, how you like anchor on the water, how you aren't pulling and kicking. You're like setting an anchor and moving past it. You're trying to use buoyancy in your lungs to your advantage, and how you sit in the water. Bill just was at the tip of the spear with this thinking. So he
Mm.
did a lot of research with a colleague of his at the University of Rochester, just looking at a ton of things. And over time, he developed a lot of thoughts around how our nervous system interfaces with the water and how we take our terrestrial athletes and make them into aquatic athletes, and how you help them to transition into that into that different space. But Bill then, when he retired at Rochester, he got to go around and coach and meet and influence a ton of people. So he was at
Mm.
Stanford. He was at, I don't think he was at Auburn, but he had a lot of influence with Skip at Auburn, probably from their time at Stanford. And then, I know that he worked with Eddie a little bit, but he was on staff at Tennessee. My first year at Tennessee was his first year not there with that staff. So he had been there for 3 years. He was on the Olympic staff in 2000 as the stroke technician, and he was there as well as like a advisor in '96 and 2004. So
Gotcha.
Bill is big time,
Definitely.
and like I said, I was just lucky to be around him and to learn from him. So like I said, everybody left, and I was able to continue to stay in touch with Bill. Bill is from like 2 hours from here, from where I am right now. So I got to go up to his place with Brett and just have my brain blown by him for 4 days straight back in 2017. And I got to go back up there with a man by the name of Chris Martin in 2018, who is another incredibly smart mind. And then Bill actually came down here graciously in 2019 and did a clinic with us, which was super cool. He stayed at my house, and my wife was pregnant with our first child, and it was awesome. Unfortunately, my son was born and COVID hit, and I didn't get to connect with Bill again. He passed away tragically in 2022. Very old, he was a very old man, but still. So he is probably where I think about something the most from, if I had to pick anybody. And I think like if the things that I take is a lot of stuff that he thought, because he was in D3 first, right? He started at Rochester. He spent the bulk of his career there. And I think just having an understanding for like the ideas around how do you take somebody who has been stressed all day about school and help them turn from a terrestrial athlete, upright walking, maybe hunched, closed, stressed, arms crossed, whatever you want to, pick out as the obvious things of a stressed person, and how do you help them relax and work with the water and use the water to make them swim fast. And it's more than just like telling them to relax in the pool or like take a deep breath. Like he had all of these different thoughts and tools. So that's probably what I take the most, is just how I think about the sport in general and how I look at a stroke and how I try to help them be ready to swim.
Totally. I love it. Anything you do from a training perspective, or again, like specifics when it comes to just like, I would say, like, is there anything that's a game changer that you think really works well? I don't know if your focus maybe more lies on sprint training, or you have more autonomy in a specific area with you and Karin working side by side. But yeah, is there anything that you think is like a game changer for your swimmers?
Yeah, I think I have a couple of things with that question. I saw that was part of what you said beforehand, and I've thought a lot about that. So I coach our sprinters here primarily. I coach our breaststrokers as well, and our sprint flyers. I see the two flyers sometimes too, but mainly our sprint flyers. Karin said this on the last call though. Just because someone's a sprinter though, that doesn't mean they'll necessarily train with me. If they vibe more with what Karin's writing, they're going to train with her, and vice versa. Sure. So we have learned over 7 years together how to instead of having siloed groups, more crossover across the board, so that we can coach different types of people. In terms of a game changer, though, I think it is. I think of two things in terms of sprint, and one of them is something that my college coach was actually talking to me about at the national meet a couple years ago. Al was talking about how the women at his school were like, they have really understood the difference between lifting and like lifting. And like, I was like, I understand it. Right when he said that, I knew exactly what he meant. Like, instead of just doing the lift, like getting into the lift and like really, really like lifting to get strong and lifting to like almost be aggressive. Right. And I think our team has done an awesome job of being even better at in the weight room. Chris McPherson, our strength coach, gets a ton of credit for that. He has been here for 8 years. So he has a ton of success here with us, in my opinion. So the weight room is a huge space. And then the other one is just, I think we do this set of 50s off the blocks. I just ripped it from a Herbie Bame interview with Brett Hawk. He was talking about the 50s off the blocks on anywhere from 2 to 4 minutes and the different ways that you can kind of manipulate that experience for your 100 freestylers. That is a set that I started doing. Yeah, that's a set I started doing a few years ago and has really evolved in a positive way. And I think our athletes have really learned how to swim it correctly and how to, and when I say it, whatever it is, whether it's, 4 of them or there's kick mixed in or underwaters or fins or whatever, they know the value in the set. So I think that I'm somebody who likes to find like that one training set, a test set, you may say, and hang our hat on it and then build, the rest of the 90 minutes around other skills.
Nice. Love it. And then as far as like, do you have a hand in sort of the strength and conditioning planning that you do at Swarthmore, just, working close with, I don't know if there's a lift coach there or sort of, any exercises even that you really enjoy? Yeah.
So I used to be like very hands-on with our strength program when I started here at Karin's request, just to make sure we were doing the right things. And we really were. Honestly, if anything, I probably suggested too much additional things early on, and we've really learned how to taper it down. But I probably haven't looked at what our strength coach has written with like a critical eye in terms of like telling him to change things, other than just like looking at it to be like, yeah, this looks great as usual, in years. Yep. Just because we're on the same page. Like, and if I see something new, I'll just send it to him. If I think of something new, I'll just send it to him, just because I trust his judgment. But in the weight room, we just keep it really simple, honestly. Like, we are not trying to reinvent the wheel when we lift in the weight room. Like, we squat, we deadlift, they push and pull, and they carry. Right. That's it. Right. Like, if you do those 5 movements really, really well, like, you're going to get really strong. And obviously doing some of them more than others. I think we probably pull 3 to 1 versus push. That's a pretty well recommended, like for shoulder health. For every 1 push exercise, do 3 pull. So that's one nuance that we like. But then with that hour, so we have 1 day a week where we do 2 hours for everybody except for the sprint group, and then do an hour on land and an hour in the water. And so that hour on land, we did, I was talking about how we did relay starts earlier, but we do a ton of dry line work that was like built around relay starts. So I'm a big fan. This is from Matt in Tennessee. They talk about like our fascial system and how to like connect a motion from, your right finger to your left toe. And how do you create a full body motion out of that? And there's a lot of great books, and learning tools. Anatomy Trains is probably the biggest, it's like a textbook. It's probably the biggest resource on that. So I do a lot of that with the athletes on that 1 hour. It's just trying to make them into a more connected athlete so they can use their kinetic chain a little bit better, and then carry that into relay starts. And we built step over blocks to use on land. And when I say we, I guess our jump coach in track, he built it for me. Nice. So yeah, we try to take them and do a bunch of dynamic things, and then practice some relay starts on land, and then we would go right into the water, and use our camera system right away with relay starts. So yeah, those are some things that definitely, I think, more recently, but also ever since we started here, have been impactful. So.
Yeah, I love it. Do you ever implement just like video sort of review sessions for your swimmers, or like have a GoPro where you can kind of like, give them some feedback under the water, or anything like that?
Yeah, we like invested heavily in the camera system this past season, and man, it was a huge game changer. We got some great recommendations from Nicole at Chicago and Nick at Eastern Michigan, friends of Karn's, and they sent us to a company that just did a terrific job giving us an underwater camera system that is above and underwater. We can kind of set it up. It took a while. It showed up in October, which was kind of a shame because like it took a little bit for us to figure it out, and it really wasn't until like December when we were like, okay, we know what we're doing now. But by second semester, it was awesome to like know these skill sets work really well with cameras, and we're going to make sure we set them up beforehand. So those are they're not cheap, but also they are a huge difference maker.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I might have mentioned this in another podcast, but I'll mention it again. I really really valued my video review sessions as a swimmer. When I was in college, I don't think I did much video review work as a club or high school swimmer, but definitely when I was in college, working with our assistant coach at the time, who's now the head coach, but Sean Clark, he was really good at just, kind of utilizing the camera specifically under the water, and then sort of pulling us out individually and just like sitting us in front of our sort of TV monitor and being like, okay, slow-mo this, like, let's look at your position in the water. Let's look at your rhythm and your catch and all these different things that I just never even thought about. And I know from the swimmer perspective, it's really nice. And it does help. That was a huge difference maker, truly. So I think it's great. And then, so, I'll ask you last couple questions here, but I am curious, like you mentioned, just the different, pieces of information you've kind of gathered along the way in your own coaching journey. And then at one point, thinking, oh, okay, I do know what I'm doing based off of this club year. I'm sort of, a hot shot here with these great swimmers, but then, kind of getting that fall of like, nope, I don't know anything. And I think that happens a lot in swimming, like, the more the less type of thing. But I would say, how would you describe your leadership style as a coach, or just like, sort of your coaching philosophy, even though that can be cliche, but just like, how would you describe yourself, in the role that you are in at Swarthmore, and how you can like impact, your athletes, the people that you work with. So I guess, yeah.
Yeah, I think my style is very laid back. I think I am somebody who tries to be approachable for our athletes. I want them to have fun when they're training with us. I like to keep it light and try to create a space where they can not have to worry so much. It's nice coaching sprinters because you don't actually have to make them do things that often, right? And you can have a lot of time to hang out and to have fun with the athletes and throw things at distance swimmers or whatever it may be. But it is a space where I try to make it as opening as possible. I try to be a sounding board for them as well. I get to know them a lot over the years. I was talking to, I was doing a reference for one of our seniors. I realized I've known her for six years now, and it's just like that. Yeah, that's like a long time, right? And I've known a lot about her, and I've seen her struggle, and I've seen her thrive, and I believe in her a lot, and that happens just from like the day to day of being around each other and being approachable and touching base with her and trying to figure out what her day to day is like, and simple things, just like asking them how their day is going. So I think it's nice because I get to, Karin alluded to this in her last call, interview, that I am not a fan of like the traditional head coaching duties, like all the administrative stuff and, being a, clean cut person and having to go up the hill and interact with faculty. That's not my thing. I'm not, I can do it, and I think I can be okay at it. But I like hanging out with the kids. I like being there for them and putting all my focus on them. Most of that is trying to figure out how to go really fast. Thankfully, I think we're very lucky that we're very focused on that right now, is how do we provide a space where they can really let it rip at the end of the year. And there's so many things that lead to that, and creating a welcoming environment is part of that. And so my role, I think, is to create that space and complement what Karin does with our program.
Totally. I like it. And then, like, I guess, just how do you also, I think I've been trying to ask this question a little bit more, but just like focusing on, the mental health of the coaches themselves. Obviously, we take a lot on when we are, committed to a program that we're really invested in. There's so many pieces. And like you said, I can hear it from the way you described the, just the situations of, taking over as interim, and, kind of the just the balance of like, how do I, raise a kid, but then and be there for my kid and my family, but then also like take on the role of like kind of being at the helm of this team leading into COVID. So I feel like there's just a lot. And so I guess, how do you kind of manage that yourself, and maybe take some time away from coaching and thinking about swimming, if you do, and sort of just like take a break and sort of like, maybe just like detach a little bit?
Yeah, I'm bad at that. I am not good at detaching. I'm very good. I'm very like plugged in. I really like thinking about swimming. But it's funny. My wife, so she's getting her PhD at Tennessee. I'm getting my master's. And when we finish, she has a job offer at Temple University here in Philadelphia, which is why I came here, is because of her. So I followed her here, and she just got tenure last week because she's incredible. And her research is actually on this topic, and like how work-life balance, and specifically with athletic employees. Probably, if you're a college coach listening to this, you've probably gotten an email from my wife in the last 5 years, whether you realize it or not. And so we talk about it very openly, and that is a huge difference maker for me, is that I have a spouse who gets it. I have a spouse who literally researches it, and like she can, like, there's times where I say things about the job, and she's like, that's a really interesting way of saying that. I've never heard that before. And she's like, literally, she's had a lot of people tell her. Like, she did a research study on college swim coaches who left the career. So like, she is super in tune to this. And she also knows that I'm really passionate and that I have a hard time unplugging. And so I think that I'm very lucky that I have a spouse at home who's understanding. And I also am very lucky. I talked earlier about Justin Stoffel, like, and Al Bulk, both of them had their kids around all the time at practice when I was in college.
Yeah.
And when I was at Tennessee as well, I mean, I just saw that Lance Assey's daughter is graduating high school, and my mind was blown because she was like 11 and 10 when I was there around all the time. Like I used to have a picture at my desk that she drew at practice once. Like, and so like I know all of Matt's sons really well. I know Brett's daughters. I was just spoiled watching great examples. I remember Ashley having faith on the pool deck when she was like less than a month old, strapped to her. And that was the first semester I was at Tennessee, and Ashley was a new mom. And so I'm lucky that I have had really great examples of what it looks like to do this at a high level. And also I have somebody at home who supports me. Now, even with that, still, I would say at the end of midway through 2 years ago, I was like fully burnt out. I had spent a lot of time trying to get to the point where we can win 3 championships in a row and can have a top 10 team. And I think it was right after Karin came back from leave, and it was me and her and Mabel, and I was like, I need a break. And this is in like December and January, and they were awesome because I pretty much just came to practice and wrote practices for that stretch and just tried to like exhale and try to, bring my nervous system down a little bit and try to feel like the ground again more than anything, because the seniors that year was the first class I ever recruited. So it was like a 6-year sprint. It felt like that really was exhausting by the time I got to the end of it. But like I said, I'm lucky that I have great examples around me. I have a great support system within our staff. And then when the season ended, I didn't do summer league for the first time, which was awesome. So all off season, I just hung out. And now this off season, we're not sending my kids to daycare, and I'm not doing summer league again. So our pool is getting construction done, so I can't even do anything at our pool all summer. So
there you go.
I'm still finding that balance, but I just like, this is like my favorite thing. I'm very spoiled to have had positive experiences all over the place. And I don't, it took me 6.5 years or 5.5 years of going all out all the time to run out of gas. So I don't want that to happen again, and I'm being more cognizant of it. But I also know that you can do both. I think you can be very successful and have a family and do this at a high level if you have the right support systems around you, and you also take care of yourself. I try to work out every day and do things like that. So yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I like you kind of elaborating on the answer. Because at the end of the day, I like that sort of bottom line being like, you're someone who loves, kind of like loves just coaching, loves swimming. Like that's your thing. That's what you're thinking about. So although, it is healthy to sort of like just have that support system and detach in a way, like there is something to be said about, just like having it on your mind on a day-to-day basis, because that is what you're passionate about. So I like that sort of point. Definitely the support system is huge. And it seems like with your wife, you have a great, just a great partner there who's there for you. And understands most importantly. So that's great. I said a couple more questions a little bit ago, but I just keep thinking of more. But this
if you
is
want to
like,
keep going, I can still answer your questions.
Well, I just keep thinking more, but this one is another one I like to touch on. But any like, what would be some advice you would give for maybe young coaches that are like in my position, right? Just looking to kind of get their first experiences in and make a sort of a go on a journey themselves and find who they are as a coach, learn from coaches. Like that's what I've been doing with this podcast. That's why I'm happy to connect, with anyone in the coaching space, and certainly swimmers too at that. But yeah, what would your advice be as like, someone like me or other coaches who are fresh out of college or are just embarking on, a coaching journey?
Yeah, I think like I talked about that Dunning-Kruger effect earlier of like that you're climbing up thinking how much you know and going down. I think like part of that is saying you don't know, and I say that all the time to our athletes. Like I don't know the answer to that question. I don't know why this isn't working. I don't know why you didn't go fast. I don't know why you don't feel good right now. I don't know why you do feel good. Like I don't know why you went fast right there. A lot, and sometimes you say that even if you have an idea, right? Because you get information from them. Like I think admitting when you don't know something is a huge step in the right direction in coaching, because then that allows you to get answers. If you think you know everything, you never ask a question, you're not going to ever find an answer. But I would say the best piece of advice I got was from Chris Martin. I said his name earlier. He is, I don't know where Chris is in Indonesia with their national team right now. He was in Great Britain for a while and coached some Chinese Olympians in 2016. And he came to Tennessee, and he like showed up in the last couple months I was there, and took a liking to me and went up to Boomers with me a couple times. And Chris was involved with like Great Britain's coaching education program, like teaching the coaches who coach the swimmers. And he told me that the sooner you can stop saying I coach like this person, the better. Like the sooner I can say like, oh, I coach like Matt Kredich, or I coach like Bill Boomer, or I coach like Al Bolt. The better, because you want to coach like you. You want to take the things that you like from all the different people, try to figure out how to apply it to wherever you are, and then make it yours. And you can still obviously talk about all the different people who influence you. But when you said that, I realized how often I hear that, right? When you ask somebody how they coach, they say, oh, I coach like X, Y, or Z person. Like I coach like Todd DeSorbo. I coach like whoever, right? And
Sure.
I think the sooner you can come up with like, oh, I like all of these different things from all these different people, and it works in this type of way for where I am, but it's your own thing, and that takes a lot of time. I would say I haven't felt that until the last probably couple of years. So, and I've been doing this for over a decade. So,
yeah, totally good. I appreciate it, and I like it. I think it's nice where you touched on the point of just like coaching in a way that's authentic to you, and not getting in a comparison trap of like, oh, I coach maybe like this person, or I have to. I think we all are observant people, and we see, certain things that we like, and then we adapt it to our own style. And it's like that idea sharing, constantly and borrowing ideas, but then making it your own. So I like it for sure. And then, so I have this has been something I've been doing recently, but just adding sort of some non-swimming related questions, just sort of, just to have some fun at the end of these podcast conversations. So I'm going to do, the Get Out Swim podcast quick hits. So first question for you: if you could choose a superpower, what would it be and why?
Oh man,
putting you on the spot here.
Yeah, you are. I don't know. Going really fast always seems to be something I like. So probably something about like something like the Flash. Yeah.
The Flash, yeah, some super speed for sure.
Yep.
If you could participate in the Olympics for another sport besides swimming, what would it be?
Gosh, probably I ran hurdles in high school, and I loved track meets. How you just kind of hang out all day, and then you get to run your 15-second race. So I probably in track and field, which is also like the second most glamorous sport at the Olympics after swimming. So that works out.
It definitely is. Yeah, no, that's definitely been the I think the most common answer so far, which is good. I love track too. What's a movie that you could rewatch over and over again?
Oh man. I mean, I'm a child of the 2000s, right? So like all like the Seth Rogen, Steve Carell movies that came out then, like Pineapple Express and 40-Year-Old Virgin and Talladega Nights and Anchorman, all those like dumb comedies, Zoolander, all that stuff was like right up my alley. So, but those I think are all come out of like Billy Madison, right? Like they all come out of Adam Sandler. He's the guy who like they all like they grew up together, but like so probably like Billy Madison. I could probably watch Billy Madison on repeat.
Nice, I love it. No, it's great. A pump up or go-to song either now or that you can remember from your time as a swimmer?
The song now that I play for them is Flower by Moby. That's like that it works out that that's also Bryce Harper's walkout song right now. So like that's a good one for this area. But when I was growing up, when I was in college, I always picked something either Eric Church or country, just because I think I did John Denver. Thank God I'm a country boy for the 100 free one year when I was in college. So that's what I'll go with now.
Cool. And so you said you're a Packers fan. So I'm curious, what are some of your other teams that you root for, either college based or professional?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a diehard Packers fan. That occupies probably almost all of my fandom is with the Packers. So I follow the Brewers and the Bucks. Yeah, and I follow the Badgers. But I mean, my family has had season tickets at Lambeau for 70 some years now, and
wow.
I'm going to if anyone's at the game on October 13th, I'll be there. So if you want to meet up,
Great.
I go to one game every year. So yeah,
That's
the Packers
awesome.
are my passion and a place where like my family gets together and it's we're very passionate Packer fans. So
That's awesome. Are you still a supporter of Aaron Rodgers?
I am fascinated by watching him do his thing right now.
Yeah, for
He's
sure.
really putting himself in the spotlight. I'll say that much.
He
I
definitely
have no
is.
reason to not want him to succeed. I'll say that. I was at Favre's first game when he came back to Lambeau, though, playing for the Vikings, and I've never heard a man get booed like that. So
Wow.
I don't think if Rodgers came back to the Jets, I don't think he'd probably get booed. But if he found his way onto the Vikings or something, yeah, he would it'd be pretty visceral. I bet.
For sure. Yeah, definitely. And then are you a Jordan Love fan?
Yeah, how can you not be, right? Like the
How
guy
can you
looks
not
like
be? Yeah,
yeah,
he's just
he's incredible, and also like I think the more you peel, actually, honestly, the more you peel back about him as a person and kind of like his upbringing and like the things that led him to where he is now, and not even just the fact that like he had to sit for multiple years, which like I can't imagine how challenging that is,
mm,
but I to do what he did last year, given everything that led to that point, he's got entire Packer Nation behind him, I would say. So yeah.
for sure. Yeah, no, I love that guy. He's awesome. Great. Yeah, my grandpa's a huge Green Bay Packers fan, so it's funny. I have more Green Bay Packers fan memorabilia, just like apparel, than I do New York Jets apparel, which is unfortunately my team. But well, who knows? Maybe we'll get a breakthrough if Rodgers can pull it together for next season. So,
Mhm,
anyways, Sam, it's been great talking to you. Final question. I have to, par for the course of the
mhm.
podcast, but are you a fan of get out swims? And if so, do you have any favorite memory of a get out swim?
We don't do get out swims. I've noticed that nobody really does on this podcast when they answer the question. But I thought really hard about an example of when we did one because I found one. So we did,
Hmm.
and actually this kind of fits in nice because I think a lot of people they talk about how do you fit it in, like they don't want to give up training,
Right.
right?
That's the
And
common thing. Yeah.
yeah, and the close, and I wouldn't even call this a get out swim, but that 50 set that I talked about earlier. So the goal
Yep.
of that set is to like go really fast, right? And once they stop going fast, you stop them in the set. But there's
Hmm.
also some value in just having them go like super duper fast one time. And so we had done like a cycle of that, like I don't know, 2 to 4 weeks of it. And we were doing like a deload in the weight room, and we were getting ready then to try and swim decently fast that weekend. This was like early November, so by no means were they getting a rest, but we were deloading in the weight room already, and we are also deloading in the pool. So like we knew that they could go fast, but we weren't, going all out for it. But I took that 50 set and essentially said like the most you'll do is 3, but if you go your season best, you're done. Like for the day, we just did a meet warm up, and if you go your season best, you're done for the day. If you don't go your season best, you'll do 3 of them, and then we'll do this afterwards.
Mm.
And everyone did it except for one, the guy who went first. And by the end of it, he realized that he didn't understand the instructions. So then he did one more and win a season best at the end,
Wow.
which is which is funny in and of itself. But they all did it. It was awesome. It was a very like electric practice because I was kind of a risk, like saying it was early in the season. Nobody had really gone that fast yet, but like
Sure.
it was still like a Tuesday afternoon, and like, all right, let's see if we can go our season best. And anyone will tell you my watch is a little hot on our team though. So like, but we had the other assistant help come. We had another assistant come and help time for a few of them to confirm that I wasn't too hot. So that
Nice.
was probably the one time we've done a get out swim where it actually fit in really nicely, and we'll probably continue doing
Mm.
things like that going forward. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It seems like just a great little test there, and something that's fun for the team for sure.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, Sam, it's been great. Yeah, I've really enjoyed just talking to you and getting to know more about some of the
Absolutely.
stories that you were sharing. And yeah, if there's anything you'd like to add, now's the time.
No, I just appreciate you letting me come on. I'm happy to come back whenever you want. I love talking swimming, and I love just talking about the sport. So